Rand through her novel Atlas Shrugged. So this is the first chapter. Yes, still the first chapter. Now, yes, Dagny and her brother are having a conversation, James and Dagny. James doesn't like the idea that, well, James doesn't like any responsibility to begin with. And now he's fighting with his sister because she took a decision, something James has been avoiding for over a year. And now Dagny is standing behind her decision and he's challenging her. It's about a specific new material that Henry Reardon, will be using to help Dagny rebuild the railroad. So the book is around Taggart Transcontinental, a big company which runs trains. It's a railroad. Now, there's an interesting question. How can you decide? James asks Dagny, and she answers, well, somebody decides, right? Who? And James's answer is, I don't really, well, and now I'm paraphrasing a lot to respect the copyright stuff. I'm not reading the book aloud, right? So I'm paraphrasing a lot. I'm changing the exact words. So he actually says, I don't know. He doesn't literally say it that way. He doesn't admit that he doesn't know. But he's like, why do we have to be the first ones to try that out? I don't want to do that. And Dagny says, well, do you want to save our line or not? And he did not answer. And James reproaches his sister. He says, why do you always oversimplify things? So in the world of James Taggart, the president of the railroad, Taggart Transcontinental, everything is complicated. Oh, thank you for the like. I encourage others to like as well. Again, for those who just joined in, I'd like to remind you guys that we are reading Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. Well, I'm not reading it because the copyright doesn't permit me to. I'm just paraphrasing a lot of it, so we're discovering the book in a creative way. James is someone who doesn't like responsibility. If he can postpone stuff, he will. If he can exaggerate things or complicate things, he will. So, and he reproaches Dagny, like he's asking, why are you oversimplifying things? Because he likes excuses, and he often likes to say, it's not my fault, nobody can be blamed, it's just the circumstances, you know? And then Alice Wyatt. We are introduced to another positive character. So some people sort of accuse Ayn Rand of advocating for the rich, but in this book we actually see also rich characters that are negative. James Taggart, he's the president, the CEO of the Taggart Transcontinental, and he's a negative character. He has a crony, Oren Boyle, who is in Washington, D.C. So Oren has both money and political power, and he's a negative character too. We, of course, have also wealthy characters that are positive, are good, and Alice Wyatt is one of them. So Taggart says, I don't see any need for immediate action. So again, he's like, if we can postpone stuff, let's postpone it. Oh, thank you to the 3 people who liked the stream. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it a lot. If you have questions, feel free to ask them away. And do we have others? Like, do we have people who read the novel? The audiobook is also available, by the way. I think it's also available on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. So those who don't like to read the actual book can also listen to the audiobook, by the way. Okay, let's continue. So Dagny says that you're a bad, not directly. She accuses her brother. She rightfully points out that James is a bad businessman. The consequences of his actions cost the company millions of dollars, and uh, one of them is a contract with Associated Steel, another steel company that is run by the friend of James, Oren, and for at least 13 months they didn't get their steel. And James is fine with that. As the president of a failing railroad, he's like, well, it's not Oren's fault that he cannot uh, send us the steel, and it's not my fault. Nobody can be blamed, you know? It's this collectivist, sort of socialist vibe that individuals are not important, the collectives are, and the role of the individual is insignificant, you know. So this is how his mind functions, yeah. And then there's another thing which James voted for, like his board voted for, he stood by that. They are building the so-called San Sebastian line. So there's the San Sebastian line is going to Mexico, and Dagny warns him. So in the book, it's actually the People's Republic of Mexico, and in the book, actually, there's a lot of socialism. The French People's Republic and the British People's Republic. So Ayn Rand wrote Atlas Shrugged in the 20th century, the second half of the 20th century, when socialism was very common across the planet, you know. So it's kind of like it's fiction, but her vision was also based on the realities of her time. We had USSR, we had socialism ravaging across Europe and the Americas. So yeah, San Sebastian line. And Dagny says that the Mexican government is going to nationalize that line very soon. And James is like, well, that's a lie, it cannot be, it's just rumors. And all the authorities say that it's not going to happen. James doesn't believe that. So Dagny is like, I know that it's going to happen, it's a disaster, but James is just denying. He's in the denial mode. And here's an interesting bit. He says, I absolutely refuse to consider the possibility of the line being nationalized. So, in the world of a lot of collectivists, right wing and left wing, everything is built on their whims and desires. So they are like, no, this is not true because I feel that way. Yeah? Or I choose not to believe this source because I feel like or I believe that it's a lie. And I have seen people like this in real life. In the Republic of Georgia, I was participating in an international, what was that, conference. We were talking about LGBT issues, and the topic of Israel came up, and there was this pro-Israeli lady who was very pro-Israeli, very emotional. Sorry, the pro-Palestinian. She's very pro-Palestinian, very emotional, and I am pro-Israeli. And I shared with her one piece of information about a Palestinian guy who sought refuge in Israel and later was abducted. He was kidnapped and murdered by other Palestinians in West Bank. So it's not just Gaza, which is extremely homophobic, hateful, like LGBT people, atheists, women, political opposition, everyone is persecuted there. Yeah. So it's also the West Bank. And the guy was beheaded by civilians. I think a family relative was also involved, if I'm not mistaken. But her response was that, and I sent her a link, I showed her a link from BBC, I think, no, CNN or BBC, I think it was BBC. And her response was, I don't believe it. It is Western propaganda. Those media outlets are paid by the Western propaganda machine, so I choose not to believe that news piece. I am certain, however, that when it comes to narratives that support her point of view, I'm certain she would be quoting sources like Transparency International or even that same BBC if her narratives would be supported. So we have people like James Taggart in real life. We have people that simply refuse to acknowledge facts. They refuse to look the truth in the eye. They're like, I don't believe it. I don't feel like it is true. It doesn't align with my belief system, so it must not. It must be untrue. It must be fake. Yeah. So we have people like that. And another thing, so James is evading responsibility. He's changing the subject all the time, and Dagny brings him back again to the subject again, over and over again. So they are discussing that special type of metal, and James still doesn't answer. He doesn't say, okay, go ahead and build the line with that metal, or stop and don't do that. He just avoids responsibility. This is the response of James Taggart. And Dagny says that she decided to order the steel 6 months ago. She was just waiting for Hank Reagan to be able to provide the steel. Okay. And still he asks a series of questions about unrelated topics. He changes the subject all the time. And then James says, well, I need time to consider it, to place the matter before the board, to consult the best. And Dagny says, we have no time. So we are shown the quality of being super bureaucratic. Collectivist people, both in the right wing and on the left wing, they are very bureaucratic. Yeah, they are afraid of personal responsibility. They're like, the board should say something, the council or the trust. They want masses to speak. They don't want any public responsibility. Of course, among them, you have a special caste which actually tends to exploit most of them, and they love speaking on behalf of the people. Yeah, the people is like that, the people is like this, the nation chose this, blah 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 blah. So Dagny pushes forward further. She says, so is it a yes or a no? And I love this quality of Dagny. She simplifies things. She brings this mental clarity. It's like opening up a GPS and asking the GPS to show you the map, the location, right? It's very logical, very straightforward. And again, he says, let me find it. No, he says, that's the trouble with you. You always make it yes or no. So again, he changes the subject. And he's like, things are never absolute like that. Nothing is absolute. And actually, Ayn Rand has some interesting ideas in her lectures. She speaks of this matter. Even if we take the following idea, nothing is absolute. If you consider it, nothing is absolute means that even that statement is not absolute. So it cannot be that nothing is absolute, because that would mean that the sentence, the idea nothing is absolute itself. But the statement itself says that nothing is absolute. Therefore, that statement itself cannot be absolute. You know? And I love Ayn Rand, I love the philosophy of objectivism precisely because of this. It's very rational, it's very straightforward, and you have to think, you have to consider, you have to use your mental and logical capacities, your reason. Or here's another example when people say, everything is a lie. When you say everything is a lie, it means that statement itself is a lie too. Everything is a lie means that sentence itself is a lie, you know? Or sometimes people can go like, you should trust nobody. When they say trust nobody, it definitely includes them too, yes? So, and if I shouldn't trust nobody, it means I shouldn't trust the speaker as well. But of course, they are like, oh, trust nobody, but me, hear me out. Yes, I have the truth. Actually, they often won't say it that way, but when you come to think of it, this is what it comes down to. Yeah, they're like, don't trust other sources, but hear me out. I have something special. And often, because they're collectivists, they won't say, I am special, or this is special because I am saying so. They will refer to some other authority, a holy book, a group of people, believers or nation, or some other authority like a historical figure. So they don't believe in individualism. So they won't acknowledge their own individuality. They won't often stand up as an individual. Yeah. And he asks Dagny, he asks, are you taking the responsibility for it? And she says yes. So those people are very afraid of taking any responsibility, you know? And then only after that he says, okay, go ahead. And here's an interesting bit. Dagny is already leaving the room, and James Taggart And for those of you who just joined, let me remind you that we're going through Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, a bestseller. If you like philosophy, economics, literature, and psychology, this book will be a treat for you. You're in for a treat, okay? Now, when she is about to leave, he says, you are lucky, others can't do it. And she asks, like, do what? And James says, other people are human, they are sensitive. They can't devote their life to metals and engines. And he says to his sister that she is lucky, that she never had any feelings. She never felt anything at all, he says. So first she gets astonished and then she gets still. Uh, she kind of falls into stillness. She just agrees with him. She says, "Yeah, sure. I guess I've never felt anything at all. But actually, the way I perceive this bit is James wants to hurt. He's a collectivist. He's an altruist, and altruists hate selfish people, even if it's rational self-interest. If it's something useful and helpful and positive and reasonable, and they actually people who are masochists who love pain, they are also sadistic in a way. When they like to get pain, they also enjoy inflicting pain. So in this scene, I think James is trying to bite his sister, Dagny, who is the vice president and he's the president. So he tries to hurt her. He tries to hurt her feelings because he doesn't have any other thing against her. He's after power. You know, people like that are after power. They want everyone to think the way they do. They want everyone to comply. Otherwise, they feel very vulnerable. They are like, if this big group of people believes this to be true, then who are you in order not to believe? Are you questioning our belief system? Are you questioning our lifestyle? And this is why they are very aggressive, very vicious, because they are uncertain, they are afraid. They think that if this is the truth, then everybody should comply with it because this is the way. And when you have even a single individual who says no, then for them it questions their entire worldview and lifestyle and values, and they get very uneasy, uncomfortable, and aggressive about that. So in this scene, I think he was trying to hurt his sister Dagny. And I think she even maybe she doesn't get hurt, but she has this look of weariness, and it reflected much more than the endurance of this moment, the author says. So, yeah, I think that was his intention, to hurt her in order to feel a little superior, because he is not superior in all the other ways. He has his position, he has his board, and still there is this one lady who stands up against all of that. She has her own way, she makes things function, she takes the responsibility, and others are avoiding responsibility. Others are like, no one is anyone, meaning individual is nothing. We have boards, we have groups, and it's the group who decides. And you have Dagny who takes decisions herself, and she's proud about it. She's not pretending that it came from someone else, from a different authority, you know? It's She says, no, it's me, it's my decision. And that's why she feels like a thorn on the finger or on the side of those collectivists. She is a threat to them, you know, or they perceive her to be a threat. All right, then the last part of the first chapter is about a scene when an employee enters Dagny's office, Owen Kellogg, and she wanted to give him a raise, but then Owen comes in to say that he quits. He's leaving the office. So, and Dagny, again, I love her reasonable approach. Like, look at the different perspectives, look at how her mind tries to understand the source of the problem, how she asks questions, very rational, very logical questions, in order to try to find the main cause of the problem. And I love that about reasonable people, about free thinkers like Dagny Taggart, and about the positive heroes of Ayn Rand, because they have this mental faculty, this skill, this ability to discern the axis, like the center of the cause of the issue, from the periphery. You know, they can get to the core. They know how to do it. Okay, so she asks her first question: why? The guy doesn't really give a clear reason. He just says it's a personal matter. Then she says, were you unhappy at our place? He says, no. And then she asks, do you have a better offer? The guy says, not really. And she asks, what railroad are you going to? And the guy says, no other railroad. And so even this little part, so why? And then when he gives no reason, she pursues it. Were you dissatisfied? Were you unhappy? And then when it's still a no, it's like, do you have a better offer? And then even when he says no, she's like, are you going to a different railroad? And the answer is still no. So she pursues like, what job are you going to take? The guy says, well, I haven't decided yet. And she asks, why do you wish to quit then? The guy, again, he says the same thing. It's a personal issue. She asks, are you ill? Are you not well? Is this about your health? The guy says no. She's asking, are you relocating? Are you going to a different city? The guy gives a negative answer. And then she continues, like the logic, the beautiful ability, and the wish, the desire to get to understand the problem. Yeah, she's looking for some ways to enter into the core. And so she then asks, have you inherited money? He says no. And she asks, are you going to work for a living? And the guy says, yeah. But you don't want to work for our company? The guy says no. And she's like, in that case, something probably happened here. What happened? And he's like, nothing, Miss Taggart. She pushes further, like, I'd love to hear that. I'd like you to tell me. And the guy says, would you believe me, Miss Taggart? Yeah, she says. And he says, no person or matter or event connected with my job here had any bearing on my decision. And she goes further. So you have no specific complaint about this company? She says no. And then she's like, I'm going to offer you something which might make you reconsider. He's like, sorry, not really. And she says, well, will you allow me to make you the offer? He's like, go ahead. And then she says that I'm I'm offering you a much higher post. You can have it if you want it. And the guy says, no, I don't want it, Miss Taggart. And Miss Taggart continues. She's like, write your own check, your own ticket. Name your price. I want you to remain here. And he says that no. And she still thinks that some other railroad invited her. So she says, I can match anything any other railroad offers you. And he's like, no, Miss Taggart. I'm not going to work for any other railroad. And finally, she's like, tell me what it is that I should say in order to hold you. Again, she's not giving up. She's trying everything. She is done with questions. She has no other questions. She cannot understand the cause, the main cause of the problem. And therefore, she's like asking for help, actually. Help me out. Okay, you have the cards. Give me your terms. And that's also beautiful, you know, when you are open like that, you are ready to learn, to consider, to cooperate. And that takes, again, individuality, that takes responsibility, that takes this level of thought. And finally, he just says, no, Miss Taggart, a long time ago, I gave you my word that if I decide to quit, I'd come and tell you. Today, I came in only to tell you that I'm quitting. So and she's trying again. She's like, is there anything I can offer you? He says nothing. And he says nothing on earth. That's an interesting thing for the book. When he uses the term earth, again, this is a novel, this is fiction. So in the novel, we have a lot of socialism everywhere across different nations. Okay. And for the first time in her life, she felt helpless and beaten. Yeah, I won't read the last bit, but this is the end of the first chapter. So we met some characters, important characters. We heard some important names. We have some positive characters, we have some negative characters. The second chapter is titled The Chain. And spoiler alert, okay? Although some of the readers, they may not get what I'm about to say, because, well, yeah, there might be some spoilers, but still, it's not directly written in the book. It's up to the reader to discover, to think around and discover what I'm about to say. So actually, there are two chains in this chapter. The first chain is a literal physical chain. But the second chain And by the way, the first chain is intended as something positive and beautiful by its creator, who's also a positive character, who's a rich businessman who loves his job, who loves his quarries, his steel production company, etc. But there is this other type of chain which is emotional and which is very nasty thing. It's a nasty form of chain. It's a nasty form of blame and the abuse of someone who blames themselves. So when I say that this book is about psychology also, I really mean it. It's about human relationships. It's about human psychology. It's about some religious feelings, not uh, pertaining to a specific religion, but some of those things, including that sense of causeless guilt, irrational guilt, is sort of religious. So I love this book. It gives you so many things to consider. And next time we will be discovering that second chapter. Again, I will be paraphrasing. I won't be reading because of the copyright limitations. But stay tuned, okay? And let's continue discovering the, I could say, timeless book of Ayn Rand for many decades now. The book is in print. People like me and unlike me, we order the books. I ordered this one at the local library. So we read it, we listen to the audiobooks, and the Library of Congress had a, what is it called? A poll. They asked, I think, more than 1,000 readers. They asked which book affected your life the most. And the first book for most of the readers was the Bible. The second book was this one, Atlas Shrugged. So this is how important the book is in the US, in popular culture, and in the lives of people who value individualism, liberty, and freedom. So thank you for being with me. Subscribe and stay tuned. And remember to like and comment and also share, because those things help me and actually you help others through these actions. When you like, when you comment, when you share, you help your friends discover those ideas. You help the algorithm of YouTube understand that there is some value in this life, and the algorithm might decide to recommend these lives to individuals. And I'm about education. I'm a private tutor. The name of the channel is New Intellectuals Community. So I'm creating a community of new intellectuals, people who are interested in reason, freedom, personal growth, and the philosophy of objectivism, which is about reason, individualism, freedom, free market capitalism, where the individual's freedom is respected. So yeah, thank you and see you soon.